without further ado, we welcome Art and Angie from Battlefield Addiction and we're going to be talking about some hard hitting topics affecting our communities, our lives, our sons, our daughters, our cousins, everyone. That there's people. All of us are affected by this, and we. How this came about is I was literally walking my mom's dog. She's partly my dog, well, mainly my mom's dog too. But anyway, and there was a wonderful gentleman, and I don't know if I'm going to say his name or not, but just because I'm trying to keep where I live somewhat not too public. Um, but it sparked a wonderful conversation, a heartbreaking conversation, and it led to this interview. And so, how about you guys talking a little bit about Battlefield, how it started? And I know, Art, that you have um, a story that can help people understand how far you've come and what it is that you're about, and then Angie, how you got involved. So the floor is yours. We just appreciate you guys being here and for being vulnerable and letting people know, what you're up to. So please go right ahead. Thank you for joining us on TruthStream.
Well, Joe, I think it started mainly with my own issues with drugs, and I came from predominantly a good home, a middle class home, and kind of got involved when for me, drugs were became accessible, and I became addicted to whatever drugs I had access to. So that was me back in the '90s in high school, and we had cocaine and alcohol and weed, and that progressed, and when uh, the pills became out in the market, and I became a prescription pill guy, and went through my 20s and 30s, and then cocaine and all of it, and then finally heroin in my last 3 years when it showed up, and this was about 2008, 2009 when heroin got big around here, and so that kind of put a stop to my addiction really quick when you hit the heroin. So that was my 17-year long addiction story with from a normal family with two sisters who were very normal people and living productive lives, and then there was me, and I was just a guy that liked to party that took everything too far. So got sober, and then didn't really have any other skills, so turned to like helping people. I heard it was a good thing to do. So we just kind of turned into helping people, and I have a little bit of entrepreneurial skills, so developed a program. Um, Figured out fairly quickly that helping addicts around our community, around Washington, had a lot to do with the family members. And that's when I met Ange. And Angie took to my coaching, and I helped her with her son. And, you know, me and her developed a relationship that she thought would be beneficial to share to families. So I currently at the time, I had a treatment program, and I had sober housing, and I had that kind of stuff going on, but I didn't have access to the families like I liked. And Angie did a really good job at bringing the families around and keeping them around. And she's just a huge magnet for people. And she would get the people there, and then the message would keep them there. And so that's how we met. And this was years ago, and we worked together for a lot of years before we became married. Um, yeah, and she's just worked on the family side, and then we started the nonprofit Battlefield Addiction to really spend our time helping families navigate all these issues that families are trying to navigate. Broke mental health systems, and seemingly normal family members. Just we deal with primarily, and we deal with all families, but primarily our demographic seems to hit middle class families, middle class America, and same kind of story two that I have. My sisters are all doing well, or we've raised three kids, two are doing very well, and then this person is having these difficulties. So that'll kind of, I don't know,
Yeah, so it's been 10 years now, and I met Art, and he was so different than anybody I had met prior to that. You know, my son was already in active addiction for 4 or 5 years. We struggled with my son before I met Art, and you know, I was just grasping at everything, and we had seemingly tried everything. And then when I met Art, he was so different. He's tell it like it is. He's just a straight shooter. He started coaching me in ways that were so effective. It wasn't just textbook. It was catered to my individual situation and my son, and it was effective. And I started. I prior to meeting him, I was kind of having these coffee dates with moms, and we would commiserate over our, you know, our kids are struggling, and all we could really do is cry over the problem, but it was never effective. It was never moving us forward to a solution. And when I met Art, and he became, you know, became my coach in it, I started being like, "Can you talk to this mom?" And I started telling moms, "You got to meet this guy. This guy's just different." And this is also a guy that can reach my son because he wasn't, you know, in a suit. He wasn't out of a book. So he was so different than anybody I'd met, and wanted him to, you know, I just wanted people to meet him, and I wanted, you know, so that's kind of how
So
we
this was a
started. And
real force multiplier for you too.
what's
Like this,
that?
this was a real force multiplier. Like the two of you coming together on this really amplified your efforts. It sounds like because you have
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
an approach that's a little less than conventional, right?
Well, I think that we individualize, and not individualize basically with an addict, or individualize with families. And in this dynamic, getting your loved one out of this mess that they're caught up in, it takes an approach that's individualized for each person, because each person has different resources, and each person has different past, and each person has different capabilities, and then there's family dynamics. And we just really started getting into the family dynamics of this thing, and coupling that along with what's going on in the culture and changing our approach as the culture changed. And the culture's changed a lot since we started this. What you have to do with your loved one is a lot different than what you had to do in 1990, and a lot different than what you had to do in 2000, and a lot different. It's different now. The stakes are way higher. The drugs are more dangerous, and it's more imperative than ever for families to do the right thing.
Hmm.
You just don't have the time that you think you have, and because anything can happen at any day with these drugs. And then there's the meth and the fentanyl, and with the meth, it's long-term mental disability that we're seeing now, whereas that's shifted from they come out of it. So when I first got into this business in 2011, people would come off their meth psychosis and just come out of it and return pretty normal. We're seeing a lot more cases where that's just not happening. So there's just the stakes are just
I'm
higher
gonna
now.
flip. Yeah.
So, Art, what is uh, the difference between Battlefield? Now, something I watched that's on your website is a video that came out in 2018, and you look at this instead of, well, Frank, basically what it says, you look at this as an opportunity. So you're looking at this in a way like, people can have a lot of different perceptions of what's happened and how this it got to this point, but I love the positivity because I mean, there's so many things that come up in our lives, and the approach that we take and the attitude that we have is a huge. Um, I don't, it can definitely dictate the outcome. And so, what I love is that you actually look at this horrible situation as an opportunity to do something profound for the family, for the friends, for the whoever's involved in this. Can you explain how that came about? Because I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, we absolutely believe that this is, whether how we got here, or what's happened, or what the cause is, and we don't really like to even, there's my theory on the cause of this, especially in this time and age, is accessibility. Addiction seems to go up the more access to drugs that happens, and I think we have a huge access to drugs, and it's putting families seemingly normal families in predicaments, and then these families are being told that it's somehow their fault. Now, whether it is or not is not my. I don't have an opinion on that, or I do, but to say that it's not the access that's happening. I mean, we all went to high school. How many fentanyl addicts were there? Well, there were none because there was no fentanyl. In fact, most of us went to high school and there was no heroin addicts because there was no heroin. And so you can say what you want about trauma causing it, or this disenfranchised family or abuse or neglect, whatever you want. But I think it's access, which is a really big leader in this thing. That these drugs don't sit on the shelves. If they come in our community, somebody is going to use them. Now, all that being said, we have to take it as an opportunity at that point. We can try to work in the community and say our opinions and say what we think needs to happen and make an impact. But the major thing we do is make an impact with the family. And since now we're in this predicament, let's gain from this. Let's learn to connect better. Let's learn to love each other more. Let's learn to have compassion for each other. Let's learn to actually hold each other accountable. Let's learn responsibility. Let's learn. I mean, there's just too much to learn that it can't be an opportunity. See, so we teach and we teach family and we look at family dynamics, and there is something to be said for family dynamics and how we got here and all of that. But and the main thing that we want to do is each individual family that we work with, we want to put it as an opportunity for that family to learn what it is on the table that they were lacking in their relationships with each other, and how they can turn those relationships around and get stronger because of this. And we're a huge believer. My family ended my addiction, and I'm a believer in family, a believer in the fact that families can be our antidote to our antidote to solve everything. That a strong family can withstand these cultural changes.
Good luck, right?
And I want to add, no matter what point of the journey. So with Battlefield, that's also something that makes us different is that we work with every point of the journey. Whether you have a loved one struggling with addiction right now and they're out there, whether they're in recovery, whether you've lost your loved one. So all the above, this is available for each place.
Well, we're having the biggest impact also on the younger crowd too. When we get somebody that we can get before all this goes down. A younger kid that's just starting out in their difficulties.
I think societally we're looking at these problems from a distance a little bit. Where we don't understand that this is a drug that makes everything okay. This is a drug that uh, like all of your problems are kind of solved in that moment for whatever reason. Like it can one time, and that's a feeling that you're never going to get from reality, and you're always going to crave. You're always going to crave that one time. So the draw is enormous. I mean, we watch people distort their lives in all kinds of different ways to get the same kind of high. This is such a shortcut that you will devote your entire life to it, and there's no separating yourself from that once you felt it. It's that intense. There's a lot of judgment around drug addiction. There's a lot of judgment around, oh, that person was weak enough to, they fell in with the wrong crowd, or they had a soft values or whatever. But this is really activating chemicals in your brain, in your endocrine system, that make you feel so whole in a way that you long for that in your life, and it's relatively impossible to get there. How do you compete? I mean, like that's a very, and fentanyl is the apex of that.
Even listening to you say the things about the judgment and all of that, we are so far. Me and the people that I'm around and the families that are around, we just moved all so far past that. It's so much more like once this happens to your family, it's so much more serious in trying to get out of it than even worrying about that anymore. And I just think, if people are still have their head that far in the sand that they have an issue that maybe their loved one is into this stuff but don't want to tell people, I that's not good. There is It's past this judgment. It's past everything. What I'm seeing is truckloads of fentanyl being dropped into a community, and when people touch it, they want to do it, and everyone's susceptible. And the high school quarterback is as susceptible that comes from the great home is as susceptible as every. I tell people all the time. I have a program here, and I have 10 kids, and if they all wrote down their story, when I say kids, I mean 18 to 40. If they wrote down their story, all 10 of them, and then we went over to UW and we got 10 of their stories, the stories would be the exact same. There would not be a differentiation in the people doing fentanyl and the people in college. It's just some people got their hands on fentanyl and some people got their hands on a school book. And that's just like the lottery we're seeing happening, because we're just seeing great people from great families getting involved in this, and then it's just a bee's nest. And now you're just trying to back someone out of this with as little blame on the family and as little destruction as you can. And then the world is trying to tell all these families that it's their fault. And that's what really bugs me. So even when I was in my own addiction, everyone told me that I was a drug addict because of my trauma. And to me, I didn't have any. I came from a great home. I went on 5 vacations a year. I went camping. My mother stayed home and made me eggs. She drove me to school, for God's sake. My mother drove me to school every morning and made me eggs. My dad was always there. I was a provider. I had everything I wanted. So for me to say that I came from that's why, no, I was a drug addict because of accessibility and boredom. I mean, I wanted to do more than other people. I was just that kind of person that just wanted the party to go until Sunday rather than Saturday night. And so I
But
did that.
that's the nature of the
You
drug,
know,
right? I mean,
uh,
the nature of the drug, it will solve all of your problems. Like
yeah.
all of the bad decisions you've made, all of the honing and refining of your personality, which is a part of life and what we do, that you go through, all of that is quenched with this high. So
Well, and
you don't feel bad
also,
anymore. The problem is you are signing on to a death sentence, and it feels so good that you're okay with that
that's
because
right.
life is too painful without it.
Well,
So
I would say one step further. So I would say that life wasn't too painful. I would say that social media and phones and the overstimulated mind now has made normal life too painful.
yeah,
So that's coupling with our culture that now you're giving people something other than their phone, and their phone's already sedating them. And then now you give these things, and like normal tasks like making of beds and rooms and laundry, these are things people can't do anymore. They got to have too many stimulants, and then you're giving this drug like fentanyl. And I have no doubt that if fentanyl was around in the 90s when I was in high school, that I would be dead. I have zero doubt. If I had access to drugs like that, nothing would have stopped me. The only thing that stopped me in my addiction was the lack of access. That's what ended my addiction. Truly, was my family and a lack of access and a lack of the money that it would keep to do it. But now these kids are put in a situation where they can go to every 7-Eleven. You don't understand. People can get fentanyl. Right now, I have a house full of 10 people. If I sent them out, they could have fentanyl back to this house in under 4 minutes.
yeah.
And I'm
Oh,
not I'm not making that up. That they could go out and under 4 or 5 minutes they could have enough fentanyl to kill all of us in this house. And they know no one around here. So understand, and they know each other, and they can just go to any 7-Eleven and see any guy standing there and just give a head nod and have drugs. It's not even a conversation. It's everywhere.
And
And I
it's
would be dead
cheap.
if it
Right?
was.
It's easy to get. It's super cheap.
Yeah,
$5 for a lethal dose, right? Kind of thing.
$5 is killing everyone. Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy.
so how do most people? I mean, do people just start off wanting to try it, or is it cut with something? How does the typical person go from, whether it's nothing to fentanyl, or experimenting with drugs to then having fentanyl? What does that look like? And maybe that looks a few different ways.
Yeah. How do you get
I think
introduced?
it's a few different ways, but we're dealing with this changeover at this point. Right now, we're dealing with the drug addicts that have transitioned to it. So I don't know how many are just coming off cold and going to fentanyl and starting it. I'm not seeing the results of that show up yet. what I'm seeing is a lot of people that were already into other drugs, already having their issues with drugs, and then this one shows up, and everyone is kind of transitioned to it. And so everyone, and that's what they transitioned from heroin. They've transitioned from prescription pills. They've kind of transitioned because of the cost effectiveness.
That's what I wonder about. Is like, like mommy's little helper. The yellow pill that the Stones sang about. The idea that this is, the pharmaceutical options are always, at the ready, but it seems like this was. And I know a lot of people that got into it were treated for pain from injuries and so on, and so they got introduced to oxycontin or some type of opiate, and this is a next level opiate. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of teenagers that never had an injury uh, just find it in their social circles, and
Yeah,
it's
it's showing up in the high schools. It's everywhere, and those are the kids. The high school kids are the ones that are going straight to it now, and,
yeah.
and you know, and you're
Why
also
would they? You should know this is going to kill you. Why would you consider it? And yet, it's the most popular drug in the country.
yeah, you're dealing with also cultural issues where um, kids are talking about suicide at a young age. Kids are talking about this kind of thing at a young age. They're cutting themselves. This whole stuff, and then the weed is already there, and accessibility of weed, and people thinking it's okay for 15-year-olds to be smoking weed, and then this is just the next thing that there is, and it's the accessibility. It's unbelievable. You cannot give young people this much access to this much danger. It's like, and then tell us that it's not the access that's the problem. That somehow you as a family member have traumatized your kid. You don't know how many families are coming to me going, I don't know what trauma my kid has. I don't know what I did to them. And then the kid has now learned that's why they use drugs, and they've took on that kind of identity that I'm a drug addict that's been traumatized. And it's like, no, you had a normal childhood. Really, you just had a normal childhood, and you got caught up in this, and now everyone's looking for somebody else to blame. But the fact that it's here, and the fact that this drug here is, this is what I want to stress to people: fentanyl will not sit on the shelf. It doesn't matter if you bring X amount of fentanyl into our community. X amount of fentanyl will get done. We don't have the resistance to it. Somebody's going to use it. So until and it's an opportunity for us, and we sit here and say, yeah, well, we get to work with all these families, but it's not the greatest thing. It's not the greatest thing that we get to see families that come to us lose their loved ones. And I know almost every person that's in my program has at least 13 to 20 friends. They're in their 20s, and they have 13 to 20 friends that are gone and dead. Like, that's a lot. That's more than people that were going through Vietnam. That's like, you know, 13 to 20 friends, sometimes 30 friends have died from fentanyl, and they're in their 20s. Most of us don't even have 20 friends that have died yet. And we're in our 50s and 60s, you see? So, and it goes unmentioned. And if it does go mentioned, it's kind of like, you know, well, these families are all traumatized youth, and that's why they're doing it. And it's like, no, that's not what we're getting. We're getting great families that have done great work with their kids, that have two other kids that are graduating college and working and have jobs, and then one kid that got caught up in this bee's nest, or this
Right.
harmful.
That's the thing. Our friend, our dear friend, lost her daughter.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't say any names.
No, but I mean, I mean, this is an idyllic, life for this girl to grow up in. I mean, like everything was provided for her.
Oh,
It was, upper middle class. Everything was great. No one saw this coming. I think people dismiss the fentanyl problem because they see it under the bridge. They see it in the tent cities. They see it in all these other places, and they make a judgment. This is happening to athletes and high performing individuals, young.
our friend's boyfriend.
Right, exactly.
I
Uh,
mean,
that came out of nowhere. I mean, this was in a high, upwardly mobile situation. No one would have ever seen it coming, and it happened just like that. We've seen a lot of friends die and they certainly don't fit the you know the
The
norm.
stereo.
Yeah, and I think it's time to really kind of expand your thinking about the impact of this drug.
Right. And on top of that, one thing I wanted to add is what is the what do you think's truly behind this epidemic? I mean, it's cheaper, it's more widespread. I mean, to me, it
It's
seems
political, yeah.
it seems like it's being let in to this country, and well, not just this country, but I'll speak from that, to destroy humanity, to destroy these families, to destroy us, to kill us. Like there's something very nefarious about fentanyl. If you can speak to that.
Yeah, there's an agenda beyond
Yeah.
the profit model.
Right.
I don't know nothing about that. I'm not smart enough to be at the border. I'm not. I mean, I don't know where, truly, but I do know something. I was watching a documentary the other day just on inner cities when the cocaine hit, and crates of guns being just put in the city, and firearms being released in the city, and then people that were in the inner city, folks that were in the gangs, they were saying, we didn't know how to get AR-15s. We didn't know how to get these kind of rifles. They just came into our community, and all of a sudden we had these type of firearms, and the cocaine just got here. And was all the people in those communities traumatized and coming from, or did cocaine just fill the community and ruin it? And the cocaine came from, I don't know where it came from, but it seemingly, sometimes it just seems to be whatever country we're currently in some type of conflict with. That drug seems to shift into our country, and I don't know about all that, but I do know that it is very suspicious that nothing is really urgent or being done about it. That's what's suspicious to me, is that it's killing more people than anything that we've seen, and then nothing. There's no counter on MSNBC counting up the fentanyl deaths, and no one even is really talking about it. But they're not. They don't understand what's really going on, and the kids that are wanting out of it, people are running with their hair on fire out of it. Like, we're having an easier and easier time getting kids into treatment now, though, because of the things that they've seen. I've never seen people come back and report true evil and report what they're seeing people do because of these drugs. And that's what's happened. Is people are seeing just the worst. Normal people coming from normal families, upper middle class kids, that are coming back and saying, I've seen the worst side of life and I want out.
Right.
And the worst things that are happening in our community. And no one's talking about what these drugs are doing to the brain, and what we're doing. But I wish I could get into saying, I wish I knew how exactly these drugs got here and why they're let in, and why we wouldn't just pay the country that made them to not bring them here. And I mean, to me, it seems like we could just buy it and put it in the ocean, or put it something, not in the ocean, but put it somewhere and get rid of it, and just destroy it somehow and not have it come to our country. It seems logical to me, but instead, there's a trade here going on. Somebody's profiting from it, and here it is. But all we can do is take what we can with our families and try to get them out of this fire, and try to help them with as little as destruction as we can, and try to get it before it kills someone in their family. And I just, people do need to know, though, that it's, the danger of even touching it, the danger of having it around. I mean, it's not. I don't. If your loved one right now is in addiction and they're on fentanyl, I just would like people to know that if someone is in my home, which I always have drug addicts in my home, and if someone is in my home and they're using fentanyl, and we stop them and we say, okay, we found out this person is using, or they went and got some today, we sit up all night and kind of watch them. We don't sleep. So when we know someone is on fentanyl, we watch that person the entire time they're on it, so that they don't die. And that's what we have to do. And we don't always get the luxury of doing that, because we don't always know. But for the most part, we are very scared when someone's on it. I mean, minute by minute by minute. And so when families understand that their person is out there doing it, I don't know if I just want them to know, you might not have the time you think you have. See, alcoholism had time to it. Cocaine addiction had time to it. You know, um, these marijuana addictions or these other addictions had a gradual slope of progression, where somebody you could see declining and you could have time to get that train from derailing. But these current drugs, they have a progression slope that looks like this. It's like top to hitting bottom in 2 days. And
No way.
there is no there is there's this myth that our culture lives by, that somebody is going to come to this place where they want treatment. Like, we've never experienced that. It doesn't happen. We don't have anyone that came here wanting to be here. They want to still be using drugs because they're highly addicted to them. So they come here and they have the massively difficult time getting off, and then after a couple months, they want to be sober now. But families need to intervene and do these things, because that's what stops us, is when someone we love intervenes. When a judge intervenes, something intervenes on our addiction. And when that happens, that's what makes us go the other way. And without that, I've never had anyone call me from a penthouse suite with women all around them and a bunch of cocaine and say, Art, I want treatment. It's just never happened. You
Right.
see? What happens is somebody comes here begrudgingly because somebody in their life put them to the test and said, I want you to do this.
But
And
the
that's what we're
progression
seeing.
yeah, hitting the bottom is so much faster with fentanyl that there's no time to evaluate. This is ruining my life. Your life's already ruined. You're already dead. It happened that fast.
That's right.
Like like it's that quick for everybody. It's such a no brainer. It's like nobody's getting high on arsenic or cyanide because yeah, it's probably a great high, but everybody knows that's the end. This
Yeah.
is almost that, not quite, but it's that close. It's that much of a trip to the bottom, and it's astounding to me that uh, that most people don't apply the common sense to say fuck that. Like
Well, the
it has an amazing allure. It really does,
thing
and
about it
I don't get the allure. I don't get the allure.
well, the thing about it is it's fast acting opiate, like crack was. So now someone would go through, like, people can go through like up to 100 pills a day because
Yeah.
they're smoking one like every 10 minutes, like just constantly smoking one. And so it's also a paralyzing agent, meaning once I start doing it, I have to keep smoking this, and now it's consumed all of my time. Like with heroin and other drugs, you have these times where you have off times. If you did cocaine and you did a 3-day bender, you have 4 days of off time where you could, like, kind of think about your choices, and you can kind of look back and go, I've lost all my money, and I had a terrible weekend, and I drank too much, and on and on and on. These drugs have no off time. These drugs are 100% of your day, an all-consuming obsession, whether it's meth or fentanyl. So,
Well,
so
And it
you know,
feels so good that it's like, what? Why would I want to deviate from this thing? This is especially with the world and the state it's in. Like, what have I got to lose? This feels better than anything I've ever experienced. Like
yeah,
it's
if you go ahead.
well, no, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to put my mind in trying to develop the compassion for it. It's really easy for people to just say, this is a dipshit decision that you made and you should have known what you were getting into, but it's just not that simple.
mm,
It's not that simple at all. Some of us have a beer, to chill out. Like when you find this level of fix, that's the fix. That's the fix. And it overrides all your other sensibilities. You can't be logical about your decisions. You're fucked. You're absolutely fucked when
yeah.
that
You
happens.
see someone homeless on the streets, and you would think, if you were there, you would think, well, why aren't they looking for a job today, or why aren't they looking for somewhere to sleep tonight? And the
Never
answer
heard
is they have no time. They
of
are very busy. I mean, it is a busy, busy time because
right.
I have to maintain this or I get sick. I have
Yeah,
to maintain this level or I'm going to get sick soon. And it's desperate. And
right.
I always wondered how people got trapped out there. And then a lot of these people come in, and the people that I help come in and they tell me how they got trapped out there. And it makes sense.
Yeah, well, some just so you guys know, and we'll use this as a pivot. Somehow, all of our live feeds are gone. Twitter, YouTube,
What?
Rumble. I'm not sure. We'll get into it later. So we're going to upload this. So I want to use this as a pivot because, we just roll with things here. We never know what's going to come up. I'm so used to adversity in my life that this is nothing. So my point is this.
Oh,
What then?
Kevin's got.
What? Let me just go with.
Go ahead, please.
What do so let's use this as a pivot to, because we're just going with the flow. What does Battlefield do differently? Let's give some optimism and some hope, and also people from I know you guys, you could go into where you're located. Part of this was that you're in Washington State, but the other component of this is that anyone, I believe, can get involved. You do things that are online. Let's go into the support and the positive component of what they can do once they find Battlefield.
Yeah, so the majority of our families are in Washington State, but we also help families out of state via Zoom. Zoom has been a great tool for us to help families from afar. We start with a consultation. So what makes us different is we are a family first approach, and we start with mom and dad. And so we sit down with mom and dad and have a consultation, get to know the situation. Or family,
Cousin.
that's true. But that way we can identify a starting point. And then, step by step, I always like to frame it that, art is like playing chess. Well, we're all, as parents are kind of playing checkers. We're kind of blinded by the emotion and we're just outmatched by it. And we can't even think straight of what to do. And we're grasping at straws. We're getting advice from this person and this person, what they said that they did with their loved one and this and that. And none of it none of it is effective. And so, Arts gives, he's a strategic coach in this. And like I said earlier, is he takes it case by case. There's no identical cases. It can look the same on the outside before we meet a family. But when we get, down with that family, it's intricate and there's certain details. And we give, one step at a time. And we have our our weekly solution groups as support, and we do workshops and we do other things to support families too.
All of our services are free services.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do with families is free. We're on a nonprofit side, so all of our family work is funded by donors, and we have a lot of great donors that are backing this. And most of our donors are families that have been helped by us and now want to get back and make sure it keeps going. And we just got a great group of families that have joined our community. Our community just continues to grow with the families that have been through it, and we're talking thousands of people. And we have our Run for Recovery and our auction and all this stuff that raises money so that we can do interventions for cheap or no money, and do these kind of group coaching and consultations. And it's time to get down. If your loved one is involved in this, it's sorry.
We didn't know if we lost you there.
Um,
No, we're good. We're good. There's just a lot of technical issues. Apparently, this topic is not popular with the internet. But you guys at Battlefield, you have a little bit of a different approach that might be a little bit more effective, I think, than a lot of folks. You want to get into that?
well, yeah, and also talk about if someone, let's say someone's in Florida and you're in Washington and they want to get involved, what does that look like? So yeah, and any feedback on that would be great.
Yeah, so we use Zoom. Instead of sitting down in person, we use Zoom. And since COVID, actually, Zoom has become in every home, and so it's made it really easy for us to get to know families that way. And so we take them through the process just the same as we would somebody in person, and we coach that family from start to finish. Um, One of the things too that I think makes this different is that we don't stop. Art has this ability to be able to, he doesn't stop at anything. He loves the most difficult of cases, and he really looks outside of the box. So we don't stay within, some, particulars. We don't work out of a textbook. We really get creative with some cases, and it's just been a beautiful process to see the most difficult of cases, and I think that makes us different. So we don't stop at nothing.
Well, I think people have to see it. We do see each family as an opportunity. an opportunity to show, one, what this is all about for this family and what they're facing, and then how do they become the type of people that beat this? How do they become the type of strategic people that don't fall victim to this? You know, we had enough victims out there in the world right now. We got enough people playing the victim, and we got enough victims. And what we kind of get out of that, and we see that this is going to take responsibility. This is going to take whatever got you into that. And when I say responsibility, I'm not talking about what got you there and who we're going to blame. I'm talking about what we're going to do next and who is going to be this person who is able to lead their family out of this in the proper way, and who can go through every bump and every failed system or whatever you want to call it. See, we want to be responsible for that system that someone said was broken. For me, I worked in the treatment business back in a while, and everyone kept saying, system's broken, system broken. Well, let's get out of it and let's do something different than if it's broke. If the system's broken, don't work in it. Do something else. Don't be a person that's just going to work in a broken system. If it's, to me, we do everything that people told us not to do. Pretty much, we take responsibility for a family and we guide them and say we're going to be the ones that stick with you until you're through this. And we can find a strategy in every family. We can find something. We can usually find a mistake or find something that they're doing to perpetuate this. And that's the main thing, is getting people to stop putting gasoline on the fire.
Right.
Yeah, your formula is, well, I guess it just involves a lot more commitment. You know, because my question was, what, what is
That's
different about your approach to every other approach that's been, you know, there's marginal effectiveness, but when we're dealing with fentanyl, it's you know, how do you how do you counsel someone that found a feeling that is better than any feeling they've ever felt, that solves all the problems that they felt, with only one consequence, and that would be death, which in their perspective it sounds like relief. Like, how,
Yeah,
that's a big
there's
problem.
other consequences. There's other consequences, and those consequences are the loss and love of your family, and we use those ones. And there's the judge, and there's the crimes you're committing, and there's tons of other consequences other than death that still come along with this.
Okay, sorry, we're just there's something that says his.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. All right.
So
We're just making sure that we don't lose any more signal after losing the live. So is there anything that we've missed, or that you want to make sure that we say, or that you say, or that you've left out, or anything? The floor is yours, either one of you. Just whatever can inspire folks to understand more about, to feel that there's help, and that they can do something to change.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it was said, but I want to reiterate. If there's someone out there that has a loved one struggling with addiction, and they're just defeated, they feel like, we hear all the time, I've already tried everything. I've tried everything. I'm here to tell you that perhaps you haven't tried everything, and please call us. We can always find something. And it doesn't mean, like you just said, that it takes a commitment. You're absolutely right. It takes a commitment with our families. It's not an overnight process. It's not like you have a consultation with us and voila, it's a miracle overnight. This is a journey. It is the start of the process, but we care, we take a family from start to finish, no matter how long it takes. And there is something you can do, and you must. And so I just send my plea out to say, just call us, give us a call. Let's schedule a consultation. There's no cost and there's no risk, and let's see what we can do to start moving your situation in the right direction, and move your loved one closer to finding recovery before it's too late. And also adding that no matter where you are at in the journey, if you've already lost a loved one, please reach out. And I have too, and I'm here. I'm here for that side as well. And there is something for everybody, no matter which part you're in. So please call Battlefield.
we've built a community that is surrounded by people who have went through it, people who have lost, people that have succeeded, people, or whatever the definition is, people that still have a loved one that's still using, but they have become a different person because of what they've learned here. And I think it's important to understand that we teach. We teach things. There's tons of, and I can't really specify exactly what we teach, but we teach families a certain level of relationship. That when we teach someone, when you come to Battlefield, what you're learning is relationship. You're learning how to relate, and relationship is where when you get sober, you have and a family is recovering from this, they have to learn to relate to each other again. They have to learn how to reconnect. And so that's what we're teaching is that reconnection so that when you come out of this thing, when your family comes out of it, you're better for have gone through it. That you went through it and now it's a blessing that you went through it because look what you learned. And that's what kind of what we want to provide. What we want to provide is that experience that makes a family better because of what they went through. No victims. This is what's happening. You don't get to be a victim. You don't get to sulk in it. We understand the problem here. We understand people are living and it sucks. But what are we going to learn here? And how are we going to get better? And how are we going to improve? And what are we going to do to get back to the community? And what are we going to do to make sure that we're not hurting our loved ones anymore? And to make sure that we're going to get out of this more, really feeling that we challenged ourselves, really feeling that we overcame something, and coming out of it in a way that makes you want to show up and get back at the auction and let other families have the experience we did. So we provide an experience for families, and we also provide the strategy that's needed to get your loved one out of it. And don't, if you're out there and you haven't heard the word strategy, then you're not even in the game yet. Because if you're a family member and your loved one's in addiction, you need to know a strategy. You need to have a strategy to get them out. And if your strategy is wait for them to hit bottom, that's not a good strategy. That's nothing. Because what is bottom anymore? So it's very important that you get yourself a strategy, and it's very important that you get one from somebody that's got some experience that has done this a few times. So that's what we provide, and I think that for us, it's all whatever's happening is happening. So we're not a victim to it. It's not a tragedy. It's just an opportunity. And that's just how we live it, and that's how the battle family.
Yes, so battlefieldaddiction.com. Our phone number is 253-334-2233. We're also on Facebook, Battlefield Addiction, and you can find the phone number at all of those avenues. Yeah.
Well, she's my wife now, so I have strategy. I put that strategy in play, and I got myself a wife. Yeah, I can teach it too. Thank you,
Yes.
guys.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, guys.